Hi, Dr. S. So today my deep dive blog is going to be on women's mental health and the way that number is so drastically different statistically for boys versus girls in adolescence, and kind of diving into some of the reasons why that is and why that difference resides in something that typically you think doesn't discriminate, like depression or eating disorders, etc. But without further ado, let's get into it. So first of all, this isn't directly relating to mental health, but just to start off, 1 in 3 women say that they've experienced physical or sexual assault, according to womenforwomen.org. And I know that number is quite literally crazy. And that means that a third of all women that are just walking around every day have unfortunately experienced some kind of trauma. And for a lot of these cases, that trauma occurs in adolescence when people are children, unfortunately. And those numbers are so different when it comes to boys. So the percent of boys that are sexually assaulted is 1 in 13 versus girls being 1 in 3, which is an unfortunate but apparent difference. So the first great difference that I wanted to dive into is the rate of depression that is experienced by adolescents. According to therapeuticpartners.com, girls experience almost twice the rate of depression that boys do, beginning as young as age 12. One study of self-inflicted wounds leading to emergency room visits indicated a significant difference in the increased rate of suicide attempts between young males and females. In 2015, the number of emergency room visits for teenage girls due to self-inflicted wounds increased 8.4% between 2009 and 2015. So one of the biggest reasons why I think that happened is because, one, social media really kind of blew up in the years 2009 to 2015. I mean, in 2009, everybody was on MySpace, and then, next thing you know, it's 2015, and there's Musical.ly, there's Instagram, there's YouTube, and it is just booming. It's going crazy. And so, especially in 2015, a platform called Tumblr was super popular, and that definitely sort of glamorized the idea of self-harm and self-mutilation to the point where apparently, self-inflicted wounds increased 8.4% in just 6 years. And I think that is largely due to the popularization of things like Tumblr, and the aesthetic that was out during the time was to be more grungy and be more alternative. Things like American Horror Story were very popular, came out in 2011, where supporting protagonist Violet Harmon, self-harms in the show. And it's shown as kind of this sad puppy dog thing with little to no character development as to why she's feeling that way, but just showing it very graphically. And I think that really led to a lot of glamorization of something that just isn't a pretty thing. The next thing I wanted to dive into is the eating disorders and how they affect men and women differently, and the rates at which they affect them. So in the data from the National Comorbidity Survey Replication from 2001 to 2003, the prevalence of binge eating disorders among U.S. adults, females experienced double the prevalence of this eating disorder than men did. Females, there's 1.6% of females who identify with having this disorder, compared to a measly 0.8% for men. And we all know that in the 2000s, being thin was a really big deal. And while binge eating disorder certainly isn't an eating disorder that makes you skinnier, it is an eating disorder nonetheless. And so definitely body image and lack of control are things that come to mind when talking about them and dealing with them. And along with binge eating disorder comes bulimia nervosa. And bulimia nervosa is actually 5 times as prevalent in females than males, which is 0.1%, and females, which is 0.5%. And especially in the survey from 2001 to 2003, the media, the magazines, it's all about how skinny you can be, how thin you can be, how fit you can be. Because as we know, like, time kind of flows, and, you know, trends kind of go in waves, up and down and up and down, and they repeat. Whereas men were held to a standard, but not as high of a standard. And I just think it's really interesting to think about how the media, culture, and society all affect, well, American society, I know you hate that word, Dr. S, but all affect how young girls and young boys experience their adolescent years, and in such different ways.